Shadi, I'm so excited to have you on this conversation today. I know I felt called to sit down with you, and I know all of our listeners are going to love hearing about how to design our lives to have what we want. So welcome to What Lights Us Up.
Thank you, Christina. I'm so excited to be here. This is awesome what you're doing.
Oh, well, thank you. I know I reached out to you. When I reached out to you, I heard your interview on Cara Duffy's Powerful Ladies podcast. And you had talked about how you traveled the year at 41 years old, and you traveled all over Europe. I know initially you were drawn to Italy, and when I heard the conversation, you know, when you just feel a calling, like you have to talk to someone. I took a trip last September I know before we hit record, I told you a little bit about it, but I lost my job last summer. And I felt a calling to go to Italy to immerse myself in the food culture of my last name, where my grandfather was born. And it was the most incredible experience. Sometimes, now that I'm back to my normal, regular life and I'm working, my mind will wander sometimes back to that experience and think, gosh, what a simple life that was, what a simple lifestyle. And what incredible experience to experience that and sort of have that time to pause and learn and grow. And we get so caught up in this busyness of life. And sometimes I think I have nothing holding me back. I'm about to take a trip for my 42nd birthday, because I vowed every year I would take a trip for my birthday and go somewhere new. And I am so inspired by your story of, you know, sometimes I say, I should just go and travel. I should just go and take off and live somewhere for a little bit, or travel, or live in Italy. And I joke around, but then I think, is it really a joke? And I know other people probably resonate with that and say they would love to travel too, like quit their life and travel. So what was it that inspired you to take the trip around the world?
So actually, before I get to that, I would ask you, what's holding you back?
This cute little house in Manhattan Beach.
Okay.
I don't want to give it up. And I don't have
You don't have to. You can rent it out.
You can't sublet it.
Oh, you can't sublet it.
Yeah.
I see. So it's logistics that's holding you
Logistics,
back.
and I don't have total remote work yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Remote clients. I am a consultant.
Okay.
I decided not to go back to corporate when I was laid off.
Okay.
I decided to create my own business.
Okay.
But I have in fashion, you know.
So in person.
In person, I go in
Got
person
it.
to my clients.
So do you believe it's possible for you to experience life abroad in the way that you want it?
I think it's possible, but I think I would have to rethink of how I spend my everyday life and how I make money.
And the logistics. So
The
it's all
logistics.
Okay. Okay. I had to bring that up. There's more there, but we can do that offline if you want. Don't mean to put you on the spot. So what inspired me, very similar to what you were just saying. So COVID happened, and I had been thinking of moving to California anyway. I knew my mother lives out here, so I knew that I wanted to ultimately plant roots here. And I just, from my visits, I was like, wow, life here is just amazing. I see the next chapter of my life being in California. So COVID happened. I also knew that I wasn't going to stay forever at my corporate job. It was an amazing job, cool career, international business development for the second largest employer in DC, Children's National. And there were these doors that were kind of opening up anyway. And then COVID was like basically like the catalyst that I was like, okay, maybe now's my time. And so I was going to quit. Actually, I did quit. I was talked into staying and creating a new role for myself that would be a little more enticing. So I did. So I gave it another year. And during that time, I, deepened my meditation practice and trying to keep the mental health, good, right, for everyone, right, at that time. So I had a vision during my meditation of being on my deathbed and never having experienced life in Europe. So I saw myself being on a deathbed and like, kind of like, it's like your whole life flashes before your eyes. And I was thinking like, fuck, I didn't get to live in like France or Italy and like do the whole like walking down the cobblestone street with like a tote bag with a baguette sticking out, and I saw that, and I was like, I remember feeling this pang of like regret, and I had a vision of like the Italian Riviera, and I basically just had a visual of that, and so my heart was like, go there. And what's funny is now where I live near Laguna Beach. It looks just like that. So I'm wondering if like my heart was like, you should have just gone straight to Laguna. But I'm glad I didn't, and I'm glad I was like, okay. And like you, I was like, what's holding me back? I didn't have, I knew I wanted to leave the corporate world, and I didn't have a partner at the time. I didn't have any children. Didn't have like a mortgage holding me back. Because I looked around and it's like you see your friends with that, so it's understandable. Okay, there's a lot of, details you kind of have to sort out before you just make a leap like that, like what you described. So I was like, I have no excuse. I'm solo. I'm free as a bird. Can I make this happen? And I sorted through the logistics, and then I really, honestly, I'm also an Aries, so we tend to kind of be impulsive and we leap before thinking, which is a blessing in disguise. Because I basically just decided I want to go abroad for 12 months. I don't know how I can stay in Italy for more than 3 months. And I was, I did all these workshops on how, about visas and work visas. And this was before the digital nomad visa. And I just was like, I'm just gonna leap. And I'm going to trust that I will be guided to the right places. And so I kind of had an idea of Cyprus, because it's non-Schengen zone. I'm like, that's an option, and I had friends who lived in Cyprus at the time, so I was like, okay, let me plan for Italy, and then Cyprus, and then the rest will open up, and I'll figure it out. So then when I left, really, and I decided to make the plunge, take the plunge, I bought a one-way ticket to Italy, and I ended up only staying in Italy for 3 months, and then I left the Schengen zone, which I had to do, and I went to Cyprus. Really, truly just to leave Europe, because I had to. And then I came back to the States for a wedding, my best friend's wedding, and I was invited to a wedding in India, which is not in the Schengen zone, so that worked out. Yeah, so then my travels continued on beyond India. I was trying to get back to Europe, but it was so expensive to fly from India to Europe, and so the cheapest and best flight out was to Maldives. So I ended up going to the Maldives, which was like bucket list for me. It's really hard to get to from the United States, so I ended up staying there. And and I just, after the Maldives, I flew to Vienna, which I fell in love with, and I was only supposed to be there a week. I ended up staying 5 weeks, and then hopped around. I went to Budapest, and then I went to Croatia. I stayed in Croatia for also 5 weeks. Fell in love with Croatia, and then I met some friends in Italy. So from Croatia, I went back to Italy. So it was like a full circle. So really, it just all opened up and came together because I had set that intention to just be open to whatever comes my way.
I love that you just did it. So what meditation helped you? Because secretly, I want to know, what is this? Because I have trouble actually meditating in general. But the fact that you're able to pick, was it a guided meditation?
So no, but prior to that, I had been already certified as a coach, and I would talk about this work to a lot of people, and then I started getting clients just randomly that way. I wasn't even marketing at all. I didn't even have a website. I still don't have a website, to be honest. And
People just reached out to you?
It was the way I would be talking about it, because I just love, as you can see, I just love talking about this work, that like people were like, I think I need you to help me. And so I just started getting clients. So I got my first client in Italy. She didn't speak any English. She was Iranian. And so she spoke Farsi, which I can speak. And that's just how it happened. And so it just happened because I was just purely in joy. I was just doing it from joy. That is how you magnetize. But the method of coaching that I was being coached on, and that I became trained in, is rooted in depth psychology. So it's deeper. So it's really, it's interacting with your unconscious mind. And our unconscious mind it's almost like Pandora's box, on a personal level, where it holds a lot of our past memories, things that we don't want to really look at right from this lifetime. But when you go deeper than that, it also it's your soul's guidance. And so that is where intuition comes from. It really comes from the unconscious mind. This is why a lot of people do the plant medicine retreats and things like that. And
Right.
They're wanting, it's like a deep dive to that part of yourself. So the visualization that I did was, it was essentially interacting with that part of with my soul,
Okay.
essentially, and like where I visualized my future, and what's essentially, I take my clients through this too, where it's like you want to visualize, like, you know, you can do 5 years from now, however long from now. I just visualized my future, and it took me right to my deathbed, and that feeling of not really truly living to the fullest, and that's what came up for me.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. What do you think people can find from traveling?
What's interesting is when I first set out, I knew I wanted to take a year to, you know, try the quote unquote digital nomad thing. But I realized, and I think this is really important to note, is that when I left and I got to Italy, I needed a break from everything. I needed a sabbatical, and I think at the time I didn't realize it because I was still in that state of mind of like go, create, do, that I needed, like you said, to pause, like on a grander scale, and to really just not do anything and not work. Travel is the best way to get out of your comfort zone and what you're accustomed to seeing, you know, not just environmentally, but culturally, socially, and what that does is it expands your mind. It opens your eyes, right? How people are living. And the reason that that's important is because we tend to get caught in autopilot, living where we are. When you're kind of making the same drive every day, you're going to the same place every day, or, you know, if you work from home, you just day in, day out, we have these habits, and we get stuck in these habits. So when you travel, it kind of breaks that habit. It forces you to have a different experience that you wouldn't have otherwise had. And the reason that's important is because you are, you're being exposed, right? That's the obvious answer. But on a deeper level, and that's the second answer I was going to give you, which is kind of how I view the world, based on all of this knowledge that I've acquired about Jungian psychology. It is, in my opinion, one of the surefire ways to really expand your mind, but also become awakened to your true self. And that is the path of individuation, which is what, you know, it was Jung's term for the Western approach, essentially, to enlightenment in a more paced, pragmatic way. And travel, in my opinion, is an incredible way to work with everything that's coming up for you, to go inward more and more so that you can get connected to the truth of who you are.
Why did you focus on Jungian specifically, and then how did you learn to become a Jungian coach?
Sure. So about 7 years ago, so 2016, 2017, I just came across a webinar about, it was about, I think, really having the same relationship patterns. And I had done therapy prior to that, so I kind of was self-aware enough to know that, like, yeah, I just keep kind of attracting the same kinds of guys. And yeah, I had read The Secret, I had read a little bit about, like, law of attraction and things like that, but I wasn't getting it. And this webinar, which was the webinar that my mentors, who founded this school of Jungian psychology, Jungian psychology coaching, it's not a therapeutic model, I want to be clear about that. It just piqued my interest, and it was like working on a deeper level, not just like, you know, using the rules to date, or not just changing certain attributes in yourself, like be more sexy, be more feminine, you know. And that's really taken over a lot of, I think, pop psychology right now. It's like, it's still a very exterior, external thing, superficial level changes. This was change on a deeper level that it was really about using dating to learn more about who you are and what you really want, and to examine that on a deeper level, and to learn how we are conditioned by our culture, family structure, really in the first 7 years of our lives. We are very influenced. We're sponges, right? That's what they say about children. And so we sort of decide, okay, this is going to be my personality. And then anything that is not in line with that personality that I'm going to portray to the world, which is like a mask, I'm going to kind of push away and avoid and not look at, and you know, it gets repressed. So that's how I became exposed to this approach, which was way more interesting to me than just like, you know, do these 10 steps to like change the quality of guy you're attracting, or you know what I mean? It just felt like, oh wow, this is more profound. So that's how I got into it. And so I started getting coached, and it blew my head wide open, to be honest. And it's really, it became a self-love practice, because you start to see how, number one, you are 100% responsible for your life. And this is very not mainstream, right? And this concept is really the truth of who we are as human beings, and that we are, quote unquote, manifesting everything, but we're just unconscious of a lot of it. Like, so what I learned through the process of getting coached is like, oh, I have unconscious resistance to the things I want, which is, you know, intimacy or a long-term relationship. You know, at that time I was getting coached about it. And then it just opened up my world in a sense of like, well, if I'm manifesting these things, then I can also learn to manifest other things and greater things. And I am the creator of my reality. And basically I can work with whatever's showing up in my reality. And so it really puts you in the driver's seat, as opposed to feeling like everything's happening to me, I have no control. You know, I have to lose weight to attract the right guy, or I have to wear a certain kind of makeup. You know what I mean? It's like the power is in your hands. And the more you start to embody your authenticity and returning to that, then you start to magnetize experiences, people, opportunities, things, money, you know, anything really that your soul desires and wants to experience on this earth.
It's getting clear, right? I do believe in manifesting. I believe that we can manifest what we desire. But I think that, at least right now, I'm trying to discover, okay, I resonate with everything you're saying. I'm like, help me. I want to manifest my guy and my life and the money and the remote clients and all of that, right? And I think, yes, I think we would all love to be our most authentic selves. How do we get there? Like, if we're feeling, where do we start? If we're living this conditioned life, we're walking around, we don't even know that we're conditioned. We don't even know that we're carrying this burden of everything we've learned from 0 to 7, or even 7 to 20. There are things that we learn in our life that we carry with us. We don't even realize we carry with us. And I think we were talking before we started recording, I am working on unpeeling those layers.
You're being guided all the time. You're naturally being guided, but you're also, you're in tune. Like, you're in tune with yourself. You are seeking. And, you know, those are the people, I think, that are going to be guided towards this work and are curious. And how to really get there is to, well, it's imperative to work with a mentor or a coach, because, and I say this for myself too, and I have one, because we all have our blind spots. So at least acknowledging that, okay, I have blind spots here. And so, you know, I know someone who keeps changing jobs and keeps attributing it to a quote unquote toxic environment or a toxic boss. And I've seen this for many years that I've known this person. And it's like, at some point, I remember I read a quote by Elizabeth Gilbert, at some point that really transformation doesn't happen until you start to realize that you start to get sick of your own bullshit. That was her quote. And it's like, you realize that you're the common denominator ultimately. And I think that's the point that I got, that I was like, okay, I need to go deeper. Like, I need to try something new. And I think that for a lot of people, and that's their journey, and that's okay. But a lot of people need to kind of keep having the same experience over and over and over for whatever, whatever it is, whether it's relationships, whether it's jobs or conflicts and friendships, to realize, wait, am I maybe possibly, creating this situation without knowing, not in a blaming way, but it's like they say the universe is showing you opportunities where you need to evolve or grow, right? But it's really not the universe. The universe is you. So it's you, it's your own soul. So that's what I'm saying. You're taking the power back and being like, oh wow, okay, I'm creating this situation. So maybe I need to look at where to go from here. But if you're on your own, then I would say the first thing to look at is taking responsibility for it. I think that in and of itself is huge. Taking responsibility for everything in your life. Again, not in a blaming way, but in a way that can be like, okay, what can I change here? Or where can I start? And self-examination is really important. That's where you start. And then, we can go into it as well. The next layer, which is where the coaching really is necessary, is the triggers. What has an emotional charge for me? That's an opportunity for you to go inwards and to uncover aspects of yourself that want to be seen or experienced or expressed.
We have to pause. We have to remember to tell ourselves to pause, to reflect on that trigger. I think we all can resonate
because
with
it
triggers.
happens so fast.
We can all resonate with triggers, right? It's, it can happen every day. You can set out for your day and say, I'm going to have a great day. I can write all the affirmations I want. I can journal. I'm going to go out into the world, and someone flips me off or cuts me off driving or whatever it is. And then you get disappointed in yourself because you're like, okay, I knew that was a trigger. I knew I got triggered, and I just reacted instead of pausing and thinking, what can I do better? How can I do better? So I think, it's hard to do the work. I think it's really hard to do the work and sit there and really reflect and try to uncover limiting beliefs. How does someone, you said a coach, but how does someone, like for instance, if you were working with them and your approach, how does someone really start to uncover those shells and those layers?
So what you just said, the triggers are not a bad thing. So in a way, your soul is having that experience the people who trigger us are the biggest blessings. And this is because, for example, if you are doing all the affirmations or you're setting goals for yourself, you need to go through some lesson or experience or growth spurt to become the person that creates the very thing you're affirming for, or the goal, or do you know what I mean? So there is some unconscious resistance there that needs to come above surface for you to look at and integrate and then make a different decision. So in essence, the triggers are showing us what we are not aware of within ourselves and what we have repressed a long time ago. And so that's one thing I wanted to say, to look at it in a different way, reframe how we look at triggers, that they're not bad things. Like if it is arising something emotional in you, if it's provoking something emotional in you, know that your unconscious mind is being poked. It's like the bear is being poked that is hidden. I mean, I get excited now. I've gotten to a point where I'm like, okay, good, we've got some stuff coming up that needs to be integrated so that I can free myself of it. Otherwise, that, whatever that, say it's a certain, say it's a people-pleasing pattern, okay? If you get provoked at work, or not provoked, triggered at work, you're, busting your butt to like do the best thing, for your boss or meet a deadline or something like that. And they pile on more work, for example, and you just get triggered. And that is triggering something in you that is holding that pattern in place. So it's an opportunity to break that pattern, because we are responsible for how we show up anywhere, right? And on an, if you want to talk about energy, what's repressed and what is hidden away in our unconscious is also attracting people that are matching that on some level. we're like puzzle pieces. And this applies to everything, to anyone and everyone, which I love, because I'm always like, now that I'm able, I'm a little further down, so like I can observe, like, oh, I wonder who's going to come into my world today, because it's reflecting my mind. Or I wonder like so when you get to that point, when you cross that threshold, ultimately you start to have fun with life, because you know that what's coming up is just reflecting my mind, and I can work with it, which is a much more empowered place to be than to keep leaving jobs, right? And to keep job hopping and being like, oh, that's a toxic boss and I'm sick of it. Because it's an opportunity for you to break that, people-pleasing pattern in this example, and to own the feelings and emotions that come with it, because there's a fear, right? We were conditioned to become a people-pleaser for a reason, because if we're not, then there's a fear of something happening. Either we won't be loved, we won't be accepted, or I'll appear as a failure, I will have failed. So there is an emotional drive hidden and buried under that trigger, under that reaction, that trigger is pointing to. So it's the biggest blessing to be triggered, because you want to pull at that little thread and go deeper and uncover, what am I afraid of? And then when you bring that to light, and it's important to actually sit with the emotion. And this is what a lot of, in therapy they don't really do, in coaching they don't really do. It's the transformation, as Jung said, is in the emotion. It's integrated, because that's the energy. That's the energy that's like playing under the surface and like running our lives, and we don't realize it. So when you actually integrate that emotion, you are accepting those parts of yourself that were denied a long time ago, that were kind of pushed away and hidden, and be like, oh, I don't want to feel that. I don't want to deal with that. But what we do is we keep projecting it outwards onto experiences and people. And because our soul just wants us to become more aware so that we can change and create more consciously.
I love that. And what tip would you give someone if someone found them? Because I think a great example was something very common. Someone's at work, they face someone that maybe is piled on work, or they face someone that's really difficult to work with, and they're triggering them. Mm-hmm. What tip would you give them? I initially or immediately thought setting a boundary or journaling on it.
Yeah, so we tend to, and that's a very normal reaction, is to take an action, right? It's like, okay, well, I need to do something about it. So I would invite you to, so if it's a person that is, annoying, or you have a conflict with, I would say, what about that person is bothering you, or, the person? What about that person is really annoying? And it's like, that person is always fill in the blank, right? So that is showing you your shadow. That's what's repressed in your unconscious. It doesn't mean that you are also that characteristic. Let's say they're bossy. Okay, let's say it's like, oh, my friend is always bossy. And that is showing you, it's a mirror. That is where the mirror comes into play. Okay, that person is reflecting back to you something that you have repressed in yourself. It doesn't mean that, go out and now be bossy, flip it. What that means is sit with the fear of what if I were perceived that way, right? Because most likely that person is probably a little more timid, kind of goes with the flow, doesn't really like to ruffle feathers. So it's triggering the opposite of that, which is what's in the unconscious mind, in the shadow. And so when you start to sit with the feeling of, what if I'm perceived as bossy and rude and outspoken, or whatever traits that come along with that, there's going to be a feeling in the body that arises, and you want to sit with that feeling and really sit with that. Why is that so scary? What's so bad about being more outspoken or bossy, or whatever you're perceiving that other person to be? They're reflecting your shadow. And when you go through that process of really like examining, like, wow, I really avoid being that way. I wonder how that's like ruling my life. I probably don't speak up as often as I could in meetings. I probably don't, if friends pick a restaurant, I probably don't even speak up and say, no, I want a different restaurant, right? You start to see how that conditioned emotion essentially is running your behavior. And so that's where the accountability comes into play. Like, holy crap, I'm the one that hasn't been speaking up. Oh my gosh, not to blame, not to shame yourself, but to be like, oh my God, I can change this. I can choose, And so when you integrate the emotion, then it's almost like it clicks, something clicks for you. And then you say like, okay, now I have the awareness. And then you're going to start taking different action. And that's where the coach comes in, because it's easy to slide back into it. It's really tricky. The ego is very tricky.
Yes, it's so hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Yeah, it's hard to do it alone.
I know that my secret key is setting boundaries, holding myself accountable, uncovering those layers, and I think that will help me manifest ultimately what I want. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how do we truly manifest what we desire?
So the more that you do shadow work, which is what I just described to you, that process, the more that you do shadow work, the more you are embodying awareness, pure awareness. So this is essentially how what Jung called source, energy, God, pure awareness. So we are returning back to our soul. So we were born, everyone is born onto this planet as a pure, as a soul. Like think of like this like light, this ball of light. And through our conditioning, through childhood experiences, also our genetics, there are these veils that kind of start covering that ball of light. And so over time, we think that the veils are who we are. We think, no, that's who I am. We forget that light inside. So through shadow work, you start to take off those veils. That gunk, that conditioning starts to fall away. You start to integrate it, and you start to become more in touch with that light, that ball of light, that soul that you are. And that is creative energy. That's source energy. That is who we are, right? But we live on this planet. We have to be human. We have a body, physical body. We have to, function in society, right? So it's a dance of both. But the more you do shadow work and you unveil the conditioning, those stories or those masks, you are returning to that true self. And you can then choose essentially what the human skin is going to be. And you get to choose experiences that you want to have more and more. And then when you do, it's like the manifestation happens like that. It's super fast. And you start to notice things that come in again, because you're attracting like experiences and people and places. So it's incredible how quickly it's like life becomes magic when you return back to that pure light that is in us all along, but so many people forget. Have you seen the movie Soul, by the way?
I have not.
I highly recommend it. I think it's a Pixar film. I was gonna say Disney, but it's on Disney, but it's a Pixar film. Soul, the movie Soul, it's animated. I think Eddie Murphy plays the main character, and it depicts this so beautifully, because it's like it shows how like people that are really, really just disconnected from that light, that their soul, or they're like sitting at the computer, and it's like you can see like there's darkness. It's almost like this black sand covering them. It shows this one part, and then it says like your soul is wanting to come out. It wants to shine, but we just forget who we are. That's the truth of who we are. Okay?
I read The Journey of the Soul. It's a very interesting book, and have you read it?
I don't think so, but
you
it
need to read
familiar.
The Journey of the Soul. It's about our soul's evolution from all the lifetimes before, and the purpose of reincarnating on Earth, and what the soul comes here to do and learns. And you're part of a soul group, and it talks about the soul group and how the soul pre-organizes their life, sort of like a play, an actor in a play, and then your soul group all plays parts. It's a really interesting book. It's really eye-opening. But going back to manifesting what we want, talking about this trip and thinking about travel, how we started this conversation, and why I was so drawn to talking to you, I have this feeling that I'm really gonna just awaken my soul again when I go to take this trip for my 42nd birthday. And I decided to go to Greece. I've never been to Greece before.
Awesome.
I was so affected by this Italy trip. I was so lit up. I came home so much lighter. And then I get into a routine of everyday work, satisfying clients, building my business, paying my bills, getting to a point where I'm financially comfortable, right? The conditions that we're taught that we feel like we should do because we need to survive, all the conditions we're taught.
Those are important too.
They're important.
Yes.
And when I was telling a friend that I was traveling, I caught myself when I said, I am taking this trip to escape. And I read the word back.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I'm actually not taking this to escape. I'm taking it to inspire.
Mm-hmm.
Why did I say escape?
Mm-hmm. Why did you say escape?
Exactly. And it got me thinking, when I was laid off, it was a gift given to me that allowed me a little bit of the courage and the push I needed to say, I do not want to go work for another company.
Yeah.
I do not want my power to be tied to someone because they pay me a salary.
Yeah.
I can do whatever I want to do. If I created this cookbook, if I created this podcast, I can do what I want to do. It is up to me. So I decided that I was going to go into business by myself. And I thought to myself, I've designed this life. I'm responsible for this life. Going back to what you were saying, why do I feel like I have to escape from it? I created this. I can't blame it on anyone else. Is there a different way I can design my life? Did I make the wrong choices, or is it just a part of my journey? And how can I pivot or sort of make changes in my life that allow me to not have to feel like I have to escape, take a trip to escape? In other words, I created this career so that I can have the flexibility to travel when I want, to do what I want. Why do I feel like I'm allowing my clients to determine my flexibility when I've created this life for myself? I have the power. So how do you feel we can create our lives in a way that we don't feel like we ever have to escape from it?
So I think that what you just described is very human, and I think that that's okay. And it's really important when we are doing this work, and I think that I got caught in this trap as well, this loop where we're not doing it to like fix ourselves. And it comes from a place of like, something's wrong with me, or, you know, I need to do more affirmations, and I need to do, you know, more of this and sign up for more workshops. And I've seen this a lot, you know, with people, and I'm guilty of it as well. And it's like, okay, the next workshop, I'm signing up for the next retreat, I'm signing up. But it's almost like I'm trying to fix myself, and that is not accepting yourself as you are. So what if you are right now in a phase of needing to get away for a while? What is so bad about escaping? What if you do have a life that you feel like you need escapes from? Do you judge yourself for that? And when you uncover what is that, what is the escape protecting you from? So what's so bad about escaping from your life?
I feel like I've had the opportunity to create this life that I want to be joyful and have a life that I'm consistently happy and content in. And why do I have to take a trip to calm my nervous system? Why can't every day I experience my true values, which are connection, which are inspiration, which are creation? Why can't I experience that every day? Now, a little bit of my career, yes, I do get to create, I do get to have connection. But then there are points, like we said, you get triggered, you work with, you know, different, you have things come up during the day. You can't live in a box, regardless of whether I went on a trip or didn't go on a trip. Traveling is hard too. Living in a foreign country is hard. You're learning new things. Yep, just when I went to Italy and I was immersing myself in food culture, it was hard. Yep. I was filming every day. I didn't know the language. I couldn't go to the store by myself.
Hard. Yeah,
I'm learning recipes. I'm living in someone else's house. Yep. I'm constantly on the go. I'm trying to fit in editing while cooking constantly, while taking note. I mean, it was a lot of work.
Yeah, but you felt
invigorated.
Different. Yeah. So like we're chasing a feeling all the time. So the thing is, it's not outside of us. That's the thing. It's not outside of us. So even if you think about it, if you look at the list of like all the things we want to manifest, right? If we want to manifest X amount of dollars or a certain job, it's because there's a feeling that that's going to give to us. So you want to ask yourself, what feeling is it that I'm seeking from that trip to Italy, or that travel abroad, or, you know, the perfect job, and it could be that you might be avoiding not having that feeling. So if one is seeking being invigorated or happy all the time, is that very realistic?
No.
Because, so there might be a part of you that's resisting kind of what they call low vibe emotions, or because we don't like to feel sadness, we don't like to feel shame or guilt, or you know, the other side of the spectrum. But we're here to feel it all. And when we do feel it all, which is the crux of the shadow work, and that is when we are embodying more awareness and pulling off that veil off of the, you know, bright light that we are, and we're returning to that light. So that light just keeps growing and growing. People think that, you know, toxic positivity has really just blown up, right? Lately, it's all everywhere, and it's like people think like, oh my God, if I even like think bad thoughts, or if I feel bad feelings, then I'm gonna manifest that, or it's gonna happen to me, right? No, you need to sit with the feeling and really validate it. And you're honoring yourself by sitting with that uncomfortable feeling. What if you are not content? What if you're not fully content with your life? And I relate to this too. Trust me, game recognized game. So like, what's so bad about not really being content with my life? You know, it's like there's a thread there. Pull on that thread. Well, I'll be a disappointment. Like, I'm disappointing myself. Okay, what's so bad about disappointing myself? Well, I'm a failure. All this work, and all, you know, I moved all the way here, I chose this state, and blah, 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 and like, I'm like a big fat failure, right? Our mind tends to, it's not our mind, it's our ego, really, that tends to inflate it, and it's like, oh, it's this horrible thing. But if you actually just sit with that fear, and you integrate it, and be like, okay, I'm okay with that. Am I really a failure? Is that really true? No, it's not, right? But the feeling is really important to sit with. And then you can free yourself of that grip, because sometimes that is what's driving us to chase the invigorated life, or the perfect life, or contentment. Do you know, does that make sense?
Yes, like almost we have to give it to ourselves.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like we should be looking for external validation. And it goes back to, I think we were talking about this also before we recorded, retreats. And this whole new trend of retreats. Like, it's literally everywhere I go now. I see it in the window of a yoga studio.
Yeah.
It's in my inbox literally every day. Someone new is doing a retreat.
And I think people need it, because people are not fully satisfied. They're not really making the changes that are hard, that they know they need to make, but it's just like, well, I can't, I don't think it's possible. So let me just book a yoga retreat in India and get away for a week. And then they leave, they feel amazing, and then they come back and it's still the same life, because you haven't fully transformed. And it's the same with plant medicine retreats, right? It's like people are, I see them as the same, to be honest, because you are expanding really, really quickly in a short amount of time, and you're given all this awareness. Like, you know, plant medicine gives us these insights, and like, oh my God, like this is what I've been doing, and this is what I need to change. And it's the same with travel, right? It's like, oh my God, like I'm way too uptight, you know, in America, or I want to have, you know, more day trips or more road trips or something like that. All these realizations and insights come to us, and then we come back and we haven't integrated it. We haven't really fully, we haven't transformed, because there's work to be done when you come back, and most people don't. And so then they think, well, this retreat's not working. And then they're like, oh, let me do another retreat, or let me do another plant medicine experience, you know?
Yeah. And it makes it easy, because you don't have to put any thought or organization into, let me figure this out, let me try to fix it on my own. An external validation.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, there's no quick fix. And it's really, sometimes we need to just sit with the uncomfortable feelings. Because like you said, people typically are escaping from something. And you said it right on the nose, like you hit it. Like, we're escaping something uncomfortable that we don't want to look at. And because once we have that realization, if we don't make change, then it's insufferable, almost. And we're caught in between. And that's really hard. And I think a lot of people are kind of, I call it being stuck in the birth canal. It's like they know they need to make some changes, and it's really hard. It's not easy. But on the other side, but choose your heart, number one, right? Choose your heart. And then number two, on the other side of that is just more expansion, more awareness, and freedom. You're freeing yourself from that pattern. And once you get through it, then it's like, okay, amazing. Like the border just expands a little bit more, and then you're gonna hit something else. And like, that's just the nature of life. And the sooner that we accept that like this is part of the life, this is the human experience essentially, then it kind of becomes easier to, like, when we hit those walls and find a way to scale it, and then we expand a little more, and then we hit another wall, and then we find a way to scale it, and we hit, you know what I mean? It's just, we just keep expanding more and more and more. And really, this is the process of individuating and becoming our true selves.
And how has this whole journey from traveling to becoming a Jungian coach to helping people like myself uncover their limiting beliefs and go after what they want, how has it changed your life?
It has completely, it's shifted just my mental paradigm. So like how I see the world, how I see experiences, how I see challenges, how I see my dreams, and really dreaming bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's not easy. I'm going to tell you that it has not been easy for me, because it's hard to find community, you know what I mean, that thinks the same way, because most people, it's just easier not to. It's really hard to change and do the work and really face this dark side, right? These dark sides, which also the shadow is not just dark aspects, it's also where our gifts are. Sometimes we uncover these talents that like we've had, but we never really cultivated. So it's really, it's a beautiful, it makes it beautiful. It makes experiences deeper. I recently fell in love, and it's a completely different experience, and compared to before. And you also, you know, these boundaries that you talked about, I know that came up, is like, the more that you step into this authenticity, you don't need to set boundaries. The boundaries become energetic. It's just, you carry yourself differently, and as a result, you have different experiences, and you know, people treat you differently. So it's just, it's becoming, really the word empowered is to be empowered. You are becoming more and more empowered, you know?
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming over and having this conversation.
You're welcome.
Tell everybody where they can find you, follow you.
Sure. So my Instagram page is the best place to find me. It's at This Life Fulfilled. You can DM me there. If you don't have Instagram, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can also email me at Shadi at intuit-coaching.com, INTUIT-coaching.com, and Shadi is spelled SHADI.
Perfect. I'll link it all in the show notes. Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.